This day 472 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you like to sponsor upcoming share more of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please contact me directly. It'd be very greatly appreciated. Today we're doing Simon Shin Bub, Sif Chav Daled, till Simon Shin Zayin, Sif Hey. Chav Daled. Lachri Shabbos al Karka. Last time we saw that you're allowed to make an announcement on Shabbos on a lost object. But the announcement that you're selling land, and anybody who thinks they have a prior claim this line should come and say so, being live, if not, let him hold this piece forever hold this piece. Let's go lose that right. Also, that is forbidden. Mishnah says, then in Constantinople, they're like heck in this. The Chubas are going and Asus even which only belongs to Hekdesh. Shabbos even might as well don't really have, but whatever's analogous to that, like belonging to a shul, and even some which belongs to orphans. And the Arukh HaShulchan explains, it's like Paskin Alach and Shabbos. But they can announce generically. And this is anybody who has a right should come and say so. What are they leaving out? Obviously, even though it is automatically understood that if he doesn't come and say so, his chus is nullified. We don't express that explicit statement, that statement explicitly. But it's no longer like issuing a ruling. Mr. Bura says, nevertheless, the Chatchila should not do this because it's like weekday talk. But if there are places which do this, we don't protest against them because we can say that this is like Tzorchei Rabbi, even though it seems to be an astonishing thing to permit on Shabbos. End quote from Mr. Bura. Back to Arukh HaShulchan. Even though there's a need of an individual, the seller or the buyer, come on because it's a rabbin. It's considered as the needs of the masses. It's kind of like a hakonas hashuk. That's if anybody who buys and sells land and houses. Because Rabbeinu Ramah b'Sibir Gimel, can't also achiz yain b'Shabbos. You can't also announce wine on Shabbos. That make a memcha. It's like buying and selling on Kalashano. The later that mean exact says we never heard of such a custom. The issue machrizim b'sheish wine in Kor Abdeli they used to announce that somebody who has wine to sell, Kadei Shichul Kiddush Abdallah to purchase for Kiddush Abdallah, and this is not allowed. I'm not sure. The Chor it's Tzorchei Shabbos, but anyway, it says Milo Dias Chum Mekach near the valley also to set a price is definitely forbidden. Can't pursue a gdolim. That's what the decisives have been. Yesh kosher shechizu gam b'schum Mekach. I'm not sure what it means like that. Some people even allow this. It's not clear to me what's going on here. It seems like the Ramah answers it, but Arukh HaShulchan seems to already matter it unless your machris the schum Mekach. And those are right that even if you were machris the schum Mekach price, it's okay, but the Arukh HaShulchan is advising not to do it. So in fact, Mishnah Bura writes, and Magen Avraham says that where should this announcement not be made? In place where there's a lot of wine. Place of wine is not so easy to find. This announcement of wine is a tzorach mitzvah for kiddush, like we just said. Sharatzian says Eliyahu Rabbah writes that even if you don't need it for kiddush, nevertheless it's a need for Shabbos and a need for many people, and therefore he wants to be matir it. I guess what's not clear in the Arukh HaShulchan is that the Magen Avraham seems to be matir it. And Magen Avraham even seems to be matir with schum Mekach against the Ramah. And Arukh HaShulchan says definitely not with schum Mekach and probably not even with schum Mekach. The Shibur says depending on the availability of wine, it could be a tzorach mitzvah or tzorach rabim, and therefore there is makom to be meko. Chavei misho diu lo shotima rog bito. Okay, somebody who has been told that they want to kill his daughter, or his son, or to remove her from the Jewish people. Mitzvah l'sum l'derech pa'amal gam b'Shabbos k'shtel b'tzrosa. Says that to get on the road, even on Shabbos, to attempt to save her. I feel chutz shosh parsos, even if it's well beyond Tchum Shabbos. Even to ride in a wagon with horses, or to or to ride, not sure, I guess, to ride the horses themselves. You know, if he doesn't want to cover, so you compel him. Shazel Bikoch Nevesh, Shahalim Masa Shabbos. That's Bikoch Nevesh, and you're Shabbos for this, obviously. But Rav Dav Kavir, not necessarily specifically your father, doing Kol any person who can save her. The Zeis Bar Simin Shinkov Ches, this will be clarified later. Radim, Ontim Anu Aveir, Emchalim Shabbos until, if they're covering a person to an Aveiro, we don't Machal Shabbos to save him. Zaveir Pam Achas. That and that's but that's really for an Aveira, one time Aveira. The Maya will. I told us Aveira too. What was going to do same for that Aveira? Hello, Yasu Aveira Chilul Shabbos. Aveira Chilul Shabbos. Anyway, do Chilul Shabbos doing the same for the Aveira. So Yotza Schora Bev Sedom. Avo B'Makom Shnogel L'Kol Me'Chaim. But something which is going to have to do the entire life with the Chal Shabbos. Achas Mishum Chal Shabbos Kol Me'Chayah. Like they're moving from Am Yisrael. Spending Chal Shabbos to save her once, less than she comes to Chal Shabbos her entire life. And the Bikoch Nefesh say the same thing. Kamochi's Bar Shem Chel of Shabbos Lachas Kadeshi Yishmor Shabbos Sarbei. That's great for one Shabbos to keep many Shabbos. Vimi Batzma Boshas Bezet Tzarchen. If she herself wants to leave Am Yisrael, it's not clear whether we can save her. Yesh Shos Bezel Fi Avonas Inyan. You have to do whatever seems to be the most appropriate at the time. The Bashar Tzion says that perhaps that you can't to save from a one-time Aveir, you can be over at Chum Shabbos, which is not Malacha Gemura, but he's not sure about that. Mishabur says if she herself has been Poshea, she's the one who's instigating this, that her father should not be Mechal Shabbos for her. We don't say the person to make the sin or that his friend should have a merit. But that's only by Nisa Deraisa. This is Rabbanan that Leo Rabbah says can we make her in order to save her. I have a Shulchan Torah on this many years ago that Mitzvah says, a person, we can't paskin for a person's sin in order to save your friend. It's by Ridias Sapas on Shabbos. But if it's halacha of a morakim, but if he decides to do it, then he is allowed to do it, and to do Ridias Sapas in that case in order to save the other person from the halacha of oife. And evidently that's why the Arukh HaShulchan ends. Yesh Shos B'Zek Fi Havonas Inyan, who has to do according to what understands is best at the time. Shin Zayin Dinei V'Daber Davar. Okay, most of what we're talking about, I guess, in Shin Vav is in So Chefzucha, and now we're talking about Daber Davar. Alex, Steve, but Daber Davar. Shabbos Don't speak on Shabbos, you speak on a weekend. Pershach go Mecca, Memkar, buying and selling, Cheshbonis, reckonings. Miksha Tesis. Tesis the question after Mitzvah Chefzucha. We learn from Mitzvah Chefzucha. And Sham. Loving says I should understand the question. The Mitzvah Chefzucha in your Maisa. So Chefzucha is not to do things. So it's a Maisa heter. You do something which is really technically mutter. Shadezim Skarv Lamash Yirtzal Hasus Mutter Shabbos. Davar Asur B'Shabbos, but this brings you closer to do something on Shabbos, which is also to do on Motzei Shabbos, which is also to do on Shabbos. As was how raised in the Kodim. Like to go to the edge of the Tchum Shabbos, just before Shabbos over, the Scharpa to our workers. And here it's talking about something. My hand says there's no comparison. Even words which don't have to do with an actual activity. You can't have to diminish your talk on Shabbos, unlike on a weekday. Because Shimon had a mother who was old. I guess she talked a lot. And he said to her, don't speak so much on Shabbos. Yerushalmi, Amar Rabbi Shabbos La Hashem. My Koshbar Shabbos Imam is the Koshbar was desisted from speaking on Shabbos. There are no more Mamorim in the creation of the universe. Avatar Shabbos Imam, so to you desist from talking on Shabbos. It was even difficult to allow people to inquire after other people's health on Shabbos. Base, they learn like both opinions. They wrote don't speak on Shabbos, speak on a weekday. Also, you know how to say, I'm going to do such and such tomorrow. I'm going to buy such and such merchandise tomorrow. That's like Rashi. And now allowed to have idle chatter. That's like Tosus. Yeah, they could think tough suit to Rashi. Seems that the primary halacha is like Rashi. But Medashu show me how much he said also not to speak too much. When the mention the Yerushalmi is Amidas Chasidus. That is a higher madrega. Sheroy L'Chodim Lasos Ken Chav Shabbos. It's appropriate for the honor of Shabbos, but it's not the strict letter of the law. V'alazim Tivur Rabbeinu Ramah. And you can bring evidence of this from the language of the Rabbah. Ramah, who writes, Shesipa Shmuel's Diber Chidushim, who own, I'm sorry, Bnei Adam, Shesipa Shmuel's Diber Chidushim, Oneglehem, people for whom telling over news and new ideas is a pleasure for them. Mutar Saf Shabbos K'mochol. They're allowed to say them on Shabbos, just like a weekday. The Shmuel says, but you shouldn't get drawn after them at length. Back to Shon Amisha Enu Misahanek. This is still a Ramah speaking. Somebody doesn't get pleasure. Also, they're not allowed to say them. Today she's Anek Bem Chavero. Just know how to give their friend pleasure. Interesting. I can't show that's the Shlavin. Says Arukh HaShulchan. Listen, you quite an explanation. The Imu Aser Iser B'Daber Dover. If it's forbidden because Daber Dover, Echujim Netan. It has been because of pleasure. Then let's allow people to speak about commerce. Let's allow even doing things. Actually, not just speaking things where there's a pleasure from it. If Adam shouldn't eat of a daber dover compares Rashi. Clearly, the primary prohibition of daber dover is like Rashi. Perish of Taisa Mimiras Chasidus. And what Taisa says is an additional level of Chasidus. If you have pleasure of this, then it could be that it's not much of Chasidus to refrain from because you're getting pleasure and that's on Shabbos. The brackets he says, Canaan is likely this seems to me to be the shot. I'm going to see I'll hook the Davar plenty as Sel Lamacha the Asur, and how it is that to say I'm going to do such and such tomorrow is forbidden. I feel about mitzvah, even if it's at the mitzvah to do it. The Tamer, that's astonishing. We know from the previous simon that the needs of him are permitted. But Rabba asked this question of him. Mashkazim Sefer Chasidim Mishem B'Shom Inyan Acheru. Why Avraham brings from Sefer saying that's something else. Shom Isha Mishabas Le'asos Mitzvah Machal. He's saying I'm sleeping today to a mitzvah tomorrow, like sleeping today on Shabbos to stay up all night on Shavuos. Vezezai also. That's definitely forbidden. Also B'Shua B'Chor because doing something on Shabbos for tomorrow. Right? The Shabbos Mount the Shelo Shetuch L'Taretz V'Ikar B'Duk, whatever the case may be. That Arukh HaShulchan says that for bar mitzvah you're allowed to speak about things you're going to do tomorrow. Mishua writes, it's preferable to be machmer when it's not necessary to mention today. If you're afraid that if you don't mention it, you're not going to be diligent to do it tomorrow, then you certainly don't have to mention today because it's saying that you're going to do some bar mitzvah is like a neder in terms of being mechazik yourself to do it. Gimel Isagamar also because of Shai Diotos. You're not allowed to read documents of commoners. Prishul Taisa Kon Shisha Chayb is like debts, instead of matters of commerce. Aval Igos Ba'amo, generic letters, this is no prohibition. Rashi's Abitchila appears Igros. He said any letter, you're not allowed to read any letter. Karkach Higia, and then he added on, Davka Shiche Meko Meko, specifically commercial documents. But Tam Pasha, the reason is obvious. Mishum Mutsoch had Chav Abedover. This is the Harisha. The Yeshis Pal al Ramam Berkov Gimel Daniel Tesh Kosam, also because Mishit had Yetz of Shabbos. It's astonishing the way the Rambam writes now to read the documents of commerce on Shabbos. Shloya Keder Chov Yavolim Chok. Shouldn't be like waiting to come to erase. Akal Shono seems to be his own novel reason. Can't go Savat Smag. But Bay Tema Lama Tam said, why do they need this reason? We might come to erase. The nearly the Kavanah Kosukin. Arukh HaShulchan says in answer that this is deliberate. The Fadai Bikriya Bepeh Hamishum Davar Dover. To verbalize what it says in those documents, that's a daber dover. But what about reading silently? Abakriya believe to read in one's heart, line below dibur, and to take to look at without speaking. Hahira mutter, allowed to think thoughts of commerce. Fashim Misaf, you'll be hero also. Therefore, it's going to say no. In this case, using thinking, reading these documents silently is also a sin. Because you might erase Shira Ezatos, you see some mistake about Cheshman in the reckoning. Then before we give two Shimon Sifu Gimel, the Shakasu, they seem to agree with that. The Shitret Yoitas, documents of commerce, and Shitret Chovas, meaning debts, the Heshbonis, the reckonings, the Choshe Show, and letters which have to do with inquiring as to health. Also, because now to read them, I feel I am below Kriyasa. To read them, meaning verbally, and even to look at them without verbally reading is prohibited. Well, you know the fact that to think thoughts is permissible. And we come with the Rambam, because the Rambam is here. You might come to risk. So, if you're not allowed to look at any commercial document on Shabbos. Mr. Burg is a different reason. I'm not sure. A different reason than the Rambam. I'm not sure, obviously, it's not comfortable with the Rambam. It says that you might, if you read them, even silently, you might come to talk and negotiate about them. Now, the Session costed the Gam Shel Shoma, so that they wrote that even a letter which inquires as to people's well-being is forbidden. So, payers for Rish and Rashi, it's Rashi's first interpretation. Mishum Shekain Datsa Rashba, and they bring down because that's the opinion of the Rashba, Barash, Baransham, Baramban, he schemed with Rashi, and the Rabban disagrees with Rashi, the Taisvis, the Rashi takes the Rambam, the Mutter goes with Rabbi showing that Rashi in the final analysis, that you, and Taisvis and the Rambam, you're allowed to read generic letters. Kasu can't make it, they write it, that's minute. I feel Tumah Shulchan Asru, the Tumah Shulchan that forbid this, Kasu, see if you doubt, so show them. They write, nevertheless, we close Bigars to write a letter which was sent to you. Any of them are possible. We don't know what's in it. Mutter permitted. If you should not read it out loud, but look, read it silently. But it came from outside the Tchum Shabbos. It's best not even to touch it. Hey, what does this mean to say? The email of them are possible. If you don't know what's in it, Mutter close to have to read it. Shem Yesh is because Nevish, because maybe it has some urgent matter because Nevish. Like if you shouldn't read aloud, I ain't but look at it, Mishum the Das Akasu Shama to know what's written there. Daibir, it's enough to read it silently. Even if it's a letter about commercial activity, lo over daber dover, you didn't transgress daber dover. Shehira Mutter is allowed to think these thoughts. Mashing Shikha was supposed to be read it out loud. And it's actually a commercial letter. So Iser, that is prohibited of a daber dover. Mishmur writes that even generic letters also because you might come as a result to read commercial documents. But it's mutter to look at them because maybe there's something which is of urgent necessity. And it's not like a commercial documents which are only for the needs of his monetary affairs. So Mishnah Berurah also comes up here with this new idea that it's Xera. They might come to read commercial documents as well. Okay, back to Arukh HaShulchan. That you shouldn't touch the letter. Because some people hold that letters come from outside Tchum is Mukta. Even though a food which comes from outside Tchum for a Jew, Mukta Tatlo has to carry it. I'm seeing tough kuf tesvav. He's going to write much later on. That's because it's mutter for another Jew to eat that food. Just not for the person whom it was brought. So it can't be mukta for the Jew even for whom it was brought. Since other people are allowed to eat it. But the letter is mukta for everybody. Mr. Berurah says that the Rebbeim agreed that there is no concept of mukta here. And if you're marking on the letter, not to use it for any other purpose, such as merchants who leave their commercial letters in a file or some other safe space that they will not be lost, then the muktzah now have to carry them around. Berurah writes that touching is never a problem, but to read, even silently, is especially machmir for the person for whom they were brought, unless it's a great need, because then you can lie those people who are lenient. Okay, so back to Arukh HaShulchan. If we're concerned indeed with muktzah, heck mutar close by allowed to read it. The Cheder is saying that therefore those who hold shemitam achali gabo, why shouldn't you touch it? Shemashim shemitol yisrael michta me yorish and Yehudi, because then the Jew's going to take directly from the non-Jew's hands. Nim says also any Yehudi, well, non-Jew standing outside in a different rishus. Nim says also any Yehudi akira, so the non-Jew is doing the akira from the rishus outside. They say Yonoch also Yonoch, and the Israel Jews doing Yonoch inside. There's no Asim Rabbanon, which is the rabbinic prohibition, but you're Sechel Shabbos. Then comes a little shaykh element maybe but that obviously has to do specifically bringing from a public domain to a private domain. Karmless, but such a gzera would be a gzera ligzera is not made in most of our streets, which are karmless. Since we don't have any rishus rabim, this should not be a problem. Of course, the sharatzim is that the man who's showing even the Mizran said it's rishus rabim, and it's best to be machmir like them. Of course, it's mishabel shita, so that you don't need 600,000 to make rishus rabim. After Yisrael, when the non-Jew stood in the Jew's house, assuming that he came in, I guess we weren't assuming that. I know that we were assuming that before, but we're assuming that now. According to obviously the non-Jew standing stationary in the Jew's house is already done locha. When the body stands still, it's like the object standing still. So there shouldn't be any problem whatsoever. But it could be that we're afraid that before the non-Jew stops, the Jew's going to take the letter from his hand. But many people actually lean into this. I ain't seen people being mocked not to take the letters. Especially today when they bring them from the post office. To arrive at the post office in a large bundle with many other letters. So nothing came specifically for the Jew. And the post office, they sorted that, but the post office is almost invariably inside the tchum. So, and even if it was inside the home, the letter carriers do not come specifically, usually, that's just a special delivery to your house for you, they come to the entire neighborhood. So coming chutz tchum is not really an issue for most things nowadays. With it in the post office, they don't function just for this letter. There's some people have a minute not to accept it from the mailman. If the letter is sealed, also now tell the non-Jew to open it. The Mishnah says unless it's Tzar Gadol. Sharatzin writes it's Tzar Gadol, even a Jew can open it because you're being makafkuf and it's a Tzar Shabbos. El Yomo Any what can he say is I can't read it. Open on his own, that's okay. Rakin upon machas biyun. They should only read it once silently, with a little bit pen, not out loud. Don't afterwards. Don't carry it on. Say just put it away till after Shabbos. Always remember that when one of the Harry Potter books came out, we ordered the date of release. We ordered it from Amazon pre-release, and came on Shabbos. The postman said, "I know you." He brought it to the door. He said, "I know you." I think it was Chicago. No, maybe it was New York already. I don't remember. And he brought it to the door and said, "I know you're not allowed to open this." And he opened it for us without our asking and gave us the book. And whoever got to read it first immediately was able to get to work on reading the new book happily and excitedly.